Hello and welcome back, everybody, to round one. Well, what would be round one of our top 8 today for the Eternal Tournament Series Season 2 Invitational. We are actually in Losers Bracket 5, I believe, and we will be kicking off our first match in just a second between Sir Rhino on Feln Control playing Jocked on Stone Scar Midrange.
Yeah, so typically this is a rather poor matchup for the control deck because they can stabilize the board, but then they'll just lose to a bunch of Flame Blast and Obliterates. But Jock isn't actually playing a bunch of Flame Blast and Obliterates, so Sereno has a better chance than Control usually does.
Yeah, this is going to be interesting. We're seeing two interesting draws right here out of the gate. Jock's curious if he's going to mulligan that hand back. And Rhino over here, not a lot of action in the early game, so I guess he decides to pitch it.
Yeah, Sereno really wants some way to interact with relic weapons. Like he has tons and tons of unit removal, but Jock has a lot of relic weapons, and you need to look for your lightning strike type cards in that against those. And Sereno doesn't have any of those in his main deck, so he needs to look for like Vara's Favor and Feln Bloodcaster and such.
Yeah, that Var's Favor might pick off a Char Chain Flail, and that could be very useful later in the game. Slow starts out of both players here. Jock holding a bunch of removal, Rhino holding a bunch of units, but they all cost at least 4.
Yeah, so the first thing that Rhino is going to be able to do is that Steward, barring any draws of Felon Bloodcaster, and Jock has a Annihilate or a Suffocate for that. He's definitely going to use the Annihilate because it's the only Annihilate target in Rhino's deck. So this is definitely going to go for a while, and then Jock is going to be able to drop 2 large relic weapons with the Stone Scar Maul and the Char Chain Flail, and then Smuggler stash them back. So I think the early favor of this game is definitely Jocked.
Yeah, Jock looking pretty solid right now with these relic weapons. They are going to be hard for Rhino to deal with. As we said, Steward of the Past coming down for Rhino, immediately answered with that Annihilate Jock's been holding back.
So a somewhat awkward thing is that Jax wants to like play a Char Chain Flail and just smash Rhino in the face with it. But if he does that, then Rhino can eat it for free with Black Sky Harbinger's summon ability.
Yeah, that is a little awkward. We're going to see when Jock actually decides to commit to that. Oh, and Rhino getting the Staff of Stories down early. I have to
So
imagine
yeah,
we'll see the Char Chain Flail here. Yeah, and we do, just coming down to clear it. But if Rhino picks up a power here, he could have gotten that Black Sky Harbinger down and blown the Char Chain Flail up.
yeah, I kind of like just playing a Withering Witch to trade with that flail now. You have 2 Withering Witches, so you don't need to save both of them for removal here.
Yeah, and the flail will get traded into anything, so best to get the witch down. Although we do see the suffocate floating around in Jock's hand, so while Rhino might think he's safe getting this witch down to eat it, the suffocate will pick up no matter which unit he decides to play here. It will just get cleaned up.
Yeah, but from the Feln side, if they're suffocating your Withering Witch, you're very happy with that. You'd rather draw the Suffocates away on useless, well, relatively useless 1/4s, as opposed to good units like Black Sky Harbinger and Feln Bloodcaster.
Yeah, that's true. Though there are, since he does have the extra removal and he's got more relic weapons centric Stone Scar strategy, I feel like he can kind of get away with it a little bit more. And this is what I was thinking too. Is like we're going to see a lot of pressure here out of this Umbran Reaper and this Char Chain Flail if we don't see a power picked up, which Rhino did miss unfortunately. So this Black Sky Harbinger once again sitting on the sidelines for another turn.
Yeah, that Black Sky Harbinger would have been a really nice 3-for-1 if he was able to land it this turn. But now he has to decide between Lightning Storming away that Umbran Reaper and taking another 5 from the Char Chain Flail and 5 from the Entomb, or playing a Withering Witch and likely still taking 10 when the Withering Witch gets removed.
Yeah, see, this is where I'm starting to see a problem for Rhino. Is like how does he get rid of this Char Chain Flail if he doesn't hit this Black Sky Harbinger? And if he does get rid of the Char Chain Flail, what stops Jock from just bringing it back with the stash?
Yeah, perhaps Rhino has to just storm Bloodcaster and give up his Bloodcaster here just to try and stem the bleeding a little bit. He needs to extend the game so he can draw power to play his Black Sky Harbinger and then Vara back the Black Sky Harbinger eventually.
Yeah, I think that might be his line here. I'm not sure if he has that many turns though. If we see Rhino, if we don't see the Bloodcaster, or rather, even if we see the Bloodcaster come down, the Suffocate in Jock's hand can just clean up one of the units, and this Char Chain Flow will continue to beat. Rhino should be at 10 health no matter what after this turn.
Yeah, I think that he's really sort of getting punished for his greed in a way. If he had played Withering Witch last turn, he just would be in a much better position now. Like he just would have taken one less hit from the Char Chain Flail. This isn't a matchup that's about value. This is a matchup about trying to stabilize by trading with all of your opponent's stuff as soon as you can.
Yeah, very true. Though, an interesting point on if he had played the Withering Witch, it's actually still possible with the Death Strike that he's holding and that he's mousing over, that actually we will see him just continue to beat. This Char Chain Flail really doesn't look like it's going anywhere.
Yeah, Rhino is definitely just power for Black Sky Harbinger bust at this point.
Yeah, and
Because
then
yeah, Jack has no more hard removal for the Black Sky Harbinger, so he'll be forced to hit it with weapons, which will gain Sir Rhino even more health.
okay, so we kind of saw a very, very fast game there, and what we saw out of Jock is how you want like your Stone Scar decks to win this type of matchup. Like if you don't have the burn, the relic weapons are the next best thing. Relic weapons are very hard for control to deal with unless they're playing Lightning Strike.
Yeah, so moving to the sideboard, Sir Rhino is definitely going to be bringing those lightning strikes. And we saw him play against Armory a lot yesterday, including a match on stream. And I think that he's going to sideboard here similar how he does there. Just bring in all the units that can attack with relic weapons and, in this case, trade with big units like Umbran Reaper. So I think you'll see the lightning strikes, the Champion of Cunning, the Mistveiled Drake, that sort of thing.
Yeah, we'll probably see the Champion of Cunning, the Mistveiled Drake, certainly. One interesting thing is, like, I definitely don't think we're going to see Azendal's Gift like you normally would in those Armory matchups. That's probably going to get reserved to the sidelines. Stone Scar Mauler is not a deck that's known for having a lot of cards by turn 8.
Yeah, that's true. The gift is really only good against Jock's 2 copies of Smuggler's Stash and perhaps his 3rd copy out of the board.
Yeah, true. Maybe Rhino feels like that's good enough, though. Maybe he feels like shutting down the Smuggler's Stash game plan is where he needs to be. But he's going to have to find a way to answer those relic weapons. The Sabotage is obviously coming in. That's going to help a lot with that game plan.
Yeah, that's definitely one of your best cards against a deck that has a lot of expensive non-unit cards. So looking at Jock's sideboard, for against the Feln deck, he has that Smuggler's Stash. A couple of Soulfire Drakes would be really good. They are charge units that can deal a lot of damage in a hurry and then also provide value once they're killed.
Yeah. I have a feeling we'll see the Soulfire Drakes come in, although I think there's possibly an argument to make that you don't want them. Maybe in Feln Control anyway. Feln Control's the more reactive of all the control decks. Like you have the ability to, you have so much instant speed removal. Like I feel like you can't pick them up, but I feel like you probably would bring in the Soulfire Drake in that case, even just for the buff, just letting your units die.
Yeah, I think Jock has to bring in anything proactive because he's got a bunch of Annihilates and Torches that are basically useless against Feln that he wants to take out. So I wouldn't even be surprised if he brought in a couple of these Furnace Mages from his sideboard just as 4-cost 4/3s.
Yeah, he can definitely bring them in, and they do actually hit at least like the Permafrost, so it's not completely worthless.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, you can get some incidental damage value out of it by killing a Permafrost or a Staff of Stories, I suppose.
Yeah, true. Staff of Stories as well, although we already see in Rhino's sideboard plan, those Staff of Stories have come out.
Yeah, Staff of Stories is it's not really good against a deck, as we saw there, where you play it and then it immediately, even on a clean board, just gets wiped out by a Stone Scar Maul or a Char Chain Flail.
Yeah, sometimes you just have to play it into an unprotected board and may as well just be wasted.
Yeah, so I think that Sir Rhino's deck improves a little bit more post board. Feln is one of the best decks at sideboarding in Eternal, but I think that it's still going to be an uphill climb for him. This is a very tough matchup.
Yeah, this is a very tough matchup indeed, but I am pulling for Rhino, so let's see if he can get this at least to a game 3. Get this back here on the game 2. So let's see if his sideboard plan could improve.
Yeah, I think even if you're not a Sir Rhino fan, you have to cheer for him here, because if it goes to game 3, we just get to see more Eternal.
Yeah, exactly. Want to see game 3 of this matchup, certainly. I love Feln Control.
Sir Rhino looking at opening hand with a Lightning Strike here, so I think that's almost certainly a keep.
Yeah, his hand's looking pretty solid. Like, he's got the Seek Power on 1. He has Vara's Favor on 2. He has a Lightning Strike held back. He's got a Death Strike. I mean, that's a pretty solid hand.
Yeah, Black Sky Harbinger is also just one of your crucial cards here. It can often kill a thing with its summon ability and then trade with another card. And if that other card is a relic weapon that has to attack the Harbinger to kill it, then you get to gain a bunch more health. And when you're gaining like 5 to 7 health and 2 for 1 in your opponent, that's how you win these sort of games.
Yeah. And we do see Rhino, after a lot of deliberation, decide to keep that hand. So deciding it was actually powerful enough to keep. On Jock's side, we actually see a really slow hand out of him here. This is going to be a really in-game hand.
Yeah, I think Sir Rhino is just being extra careful and deliberating over each decision because his tournament life is on the line. Like he's in the losers bracket already and he's down a game, so he needs to make sure that he doesn't make any mistakes.
Yeah, very true. We see him fire off that Var's favor on curve to go ahead and pick up the extra sigil. And we see an Island's favor. Actually, not incredibly useful in this variant of Stone Scar, as we talked about. Not a lot of burn floating around on Jock's side, so the Aegis on his face will not really pick up anything.
Well, at its worst, it's going to be draw a primal sigil, gain 5 health because it'll negate the entomb ability of an Umbran Reaper.
Oh yeah, very true. I don't know why I always forget that the Umbred Reaper does that. So yeah, that actually is very relevant then. Since we do see 2 Umbred Reapers floating around in Jock's hand, we will see those Umbred Reapers get blocked on the island's favor, which is very nice for him. We also see a Permafrost picked up by Rhino, so he can use that to lock down another one of the Umbred Reapers to make sure it doesn't come off the board and get brought back with Smuggler's Stash.
The interesting thing about Permafrost on a Reaper, though, is Feln Control plays a lot of board-wide damage effects like Black Sky Harbinger and Lightning Storm. So eventually the Umbred Reaper does usually die.
Yeah, you have to be careful with how you sequence that. It's possible if he can get this Black Sky Harbinger onto board early rather than later, that he might be able to then go ahead and lock down an Umbred Reaper with a Permafrost. It might sit there for some time.
So interestingly, Sir Rhino opts to run out his Champion of Cunning before he hits either the 5 Primal or 5 Shadow influence bonuses. But Jock, his 4th power comes in depleted and he's not able to answer it. So Rhino is ahead on the board and now determining whether he wants to play Black Sky Harbinger and start pushing for lifesteal or play Steward of the Past and play sort of the worst unit first.
Yeah, I mean, I like getting the Champion of Cunning down early. Like Rhino recognizes that he needs to have at least some aggression in his game plan to try and take over this game. He can't just be reactive and let Jock run him out with all these weapons, the Umbred Reapers, the Statuary Maidens, and he knows that Jock has the inevitability of the Smuggler's Stash.
Yeah, so Rhino is really just every turn playing another unit, forcing Jock to use his whole turn removing it. Then on Sir Rhino's turn, he hits him with the surviving unit and plays another one.
Yeah.
So as long as Sir Rhino can keep drawing relevant cards here, he's got Jock on the back foot.
Yeah, he really does right now. And this is interesting too, because we see Jock go ahead and death striking down the Black Sky Harbs since he knows he's either going to have a hard time dealing with it. But what this does is this leaves up the Steward, and we see a second Steward for insurance. These Stewards are going to help a lot counter the effects of the Umbran Reapers, Statuary Maidens, the Charchain Flails, since we do see 2 copies of Smuggler's Stash in Jock's hand. And in fact, Rhino's turned up the heat and the aggression so much here that he's already put him down to 3 health.
Yeah,
with
he
the
lightning
Permafrost
strikes
in hand.
that Charchain Flail, and now he's got 2 lethal attackers here.
Yeah, he's got 2 lethal attackers, and even if Jock plays this and gets the Statuary Maiden down, like he gets the Suffocate and the Statuary Maiden, but we see that Permafrost Rhino's been holding the whole time. This will allow Rhino to go ahead and lock up this game too and get us to that game 3.
Yeah, a little bit of a missed sequence by Jock there, playing the Suffocate before the Maiden, but it doesn't matter either way, as Sir Rhino has the Permafrost to lock down the blocker and get the surprising early beatdown win.
Yeah, and I remember seeing this when Rhino actually won the tournament he was playing Feln Control on. He has this game plan with these with like all the stewards and the Black Sky Harbs, creatures like that in his deck, that he's always said, like, you can go aggressive. Like sometimes you can turn this deck into the aggressive deck and you can become the beatdown deck with the control deck. And that's exactly what we saw there. Like Rhino just playing a slower early game and then out the gate, just getting the Steward down, getting a Black Sky Harb down, and starting to just pressure his life total. Getting that 5/5 down, the Champion of Cunning, was very important out of Rhino. That was a really heads-up play on his part to actually get that down on the curve and make sure that it started connecting.
Yeah, he was able to leverage that early board lead to force Jock to always be on the defensive. Like Jock ended that game with 3 Umbran Reapers in his hand that he was never able to play, which sort of highlights another weakness of these big Stone Scar decks, is that you just have a lot of really clunky draws. Like post-board, he's going to have 4 Umbran Reapers, 2 Soulfire Drakes, 4 Stone Scar Mauls, three smuggler stashes. Like he just has a ton of cards that cost 5 or 6, and your hand can get clogged up with those really easily.
Yeah, it is very true. And a lot of the smaller units he has that he can play that don't cost 5 mana like Umber Reaper, uh, they're a lot more susceptible to Rhino's removal. Like we see the three Cabal Countesses floating around. Like Cabal Countess is one of the easiest units for Rhino to clean up between the Varus Favor and the Black Sky Harbingers. It's very easy to take care of them.
Yeah, so Serrano has actually taken out of his deck all of the Lightning Storms and Withering Witches. Like he knows that he doesn't need to sweep a large board, and that all of Jock's units are very low on health like that, and he can just rely on the Black Sky Harbinger and spot removal.
Yeah, he can rely on trading one unit at a time. Essentially, he knows a lot of Jock's gameplay and comes from these high power units that he wants to drop, and also these high power weapons like the Stone Scar Mauler. Getting relic weapons down and being able to just beat the control deck to death is exactly what you're trying to do here with the Stone Scar mid range Maulers deck.
Yeah, it really comes down to whether Jock can stick a relic weapon for multiple attacks like what happened in game 1, or get it killed immediately like what happened in game 2.
Yeah, very true. Well, we will see them jumping back in here. Rhino with an interesting hand here. Two Stewards and a Black Sky Harv, a Seek Power. A little slow. I have to imagine we'll see a redraw here.
Yeah, I think he wants some more early interaction. And Jock has also mulliganed into a relatively slow hand. Like, aside from this Champion of Chaos, he's not going to do anything meaningful until turn 6.
Oh, wow. Okay, so what I'm already seeing is that if Rhino can extend this game early and he's not put under a lot of pressure, we might see a really sick backlash on a Smuggler Stash.
Yeah,
And that might turn
yeah,
the tide of this game later. I have a feeling that we might see that as what tips it if Rhino can win this.
that's almost assuredly why Rhino has backlash in his deck, is because of the overwhelming late game power of Smuggler's Stash in a deck that's set up to maximize it. Like, Jock's deck will almost always be able to draw 4 cards, and that's almost impossible to overcome. But if you have backlash, then suddenly your opponent's entire late game plan just disappears.
Yeah, very true. And we do see this is that incidental, or I guess less than incidental in this case, relic destruction or enchantment destruction attachment, whatever they are. We see the Furnace Mage coming down, popping the Permafrost Rhino had put on the champion, and that's actually putting like a very real threat in Rhino's face. Like he has to find a way to answer this here. He can get a Steward down, and that will help, but
Yeah,
it'll
it
only really
can
hold him for a turn.
trade. Yeah, he's definitely under the gun now. I think that Steward, to make it so Furnace Mage can't attack, and then you can trade with the Champion of Chaos, is probably the play here.
Yeah,
Feln Bloodcaster doesn't do anything, and Jock doesn't have a bunch of stuff in the void, so holding up Backlash doesn't really matter either.
no, not particularly. There's nothing really, and there's no way for Rhino to weave his power in this turn that he can get multiple effects off. So he just goes for the Steward, gets the one
Ooh.
solid play down. Ooh, yeah.
Jock draws a Fire Sigil, so he's going to be able to push an extra 4 damage with this champion here. That could be very important.
Yeah, that extra 4 damage is huge. And we see the second Champion of Chaos coming down as a 5/5. And that's going to present a real problem for him. And Rhino already lacking in a way to deal with this. He really
Yes.
needed that permafrost to stick on the first champion.
Yeah, Serrano is wishing he still had his Withering Witches now. Withering Witch and a Black Sky Harbinger would be a good way to turn this around. So now he's going to have to hope to deploy 2 units and block the champion, or draw a Death Strike within the next turn or two. Otherwise, he's just going to take too much damage.
Yeah, we'll see if he can muster something up. I have to imagine we're going to see like Island's Favor into Bloodcaster. That's really all you can do this turn.
Either that or Bloodcast or hold up Backlash. It just depends what he's more afraid of.
Yeah, well, knowing Jock's list, since Backlash can only counter spells, there's really not too much you're worried about. I guess there's some removal floating around you could try and protect the Bloodcaster from.
Yeah,
But
some
other
like a
than that,
Suffocate or something.
yeah, it's just like stash, and like we already see Jock doesn't really have anything in his void. Like he has the single silence Champion of Chaos, but his board's already threatening enough by itself.
Yeah, certainly. Sir Rhino definitely needs to pick up a Death Strike or another Steward of the Past.
Yeah, he's gonna have to pick up something fast here, and if Jock picks up a Sigil, nope, didn't hit the sigil, but he still does have, he can push this 5 damage here really easily. Probably going to have to go unblocked by Rhino, and then he can drop another solid unit on the board. He could either get this Steward down, or he can just pass turn and establish the Cabal Countess for the next turn.
Yeah, I think he's definitely going to go for Cabal Countess just because he's ahead on the board right now, so he wants to play around some sort of board sweeper effect from Sir Rhino. All right, well, there's the Steward of the Past that Sir Rhino needed. That'll deal with the Champion of Chaos. He's going to go down to 7 health, though, but I guess with an Aegis, that's a little less frightening.
Yeah, it's not terrifying, but we do see Jock has the Maul in hand, so we're going to have to see if he finds that 6th power. This could be very, very over for Rhino, and he's already going to have the problem with this Cabal Countess of trying to deal with it, though he does have the Black Sky Harbinger for next turn.
Yeah, Black Sky Harbinger is going to pick off that Cabal Countess for free, but not before it deals 6 damage or forces Rhino to chump away his Feln Bloodcaster. So the question is whether that Bloodcaster is worth more than 6 health to him.
Well, I think the trick here is that it has to be valued as worth 6 health, since Rhino will be going down to 1. 1 puts you in a very interesting position.
Yeah, that would put him dead to any top deck removal for the Black Sky Harbinger. But I think he's determined that he's far enough behind that he can't afford to play around that. He's just going to go down to 1, go back up to 4, and hope that Jock bricks for a turn.
Yeah, true. We'll see. Interestingly enough, though, well, since he will recover at least some health, it's not quite there. But the Stonescar Maul could push over one of these units at some point. See a Soulfire Drake picked up.
That's an interesting one. I think that is definitely the play because it forces Rhino to trade with the Black Sky Harbinger so he can't continue to gain health.
Yep, he will have to trade there. That will take him back up to 7. So he's feeling a little bit better now with the Black Sky Harb down. Still not great, though.
Yeah, 7 is a scary place to be at when your opponent's whole deck is full of units with either flying or charge.
Yeah, definitely. And I mean, we already see Jock's hand. Like, he still has so much gas with the stashes if he has to, even if he brings back these silenced units.
Yeah, and he finally finds the 6th power for the Maul. So that means that a Smuggler stash is probably coming from Jock next turn now that he has a bunch of things to bring back. And Sir Rhino will maybe get to flip this board around by backlashing that.
Yeah, hopefully that will be the turning point. Though we do see the 2nd stash in Jock's hand, so it won't be nearly as backbreaking as it would have been.
That's true. It basically just buys Rhino a turn. But when you have a Feln Bloodcasters ready to ultimate, a turn is pretty good. And he might even steal a flying or charge unit from Jock's deck.
Yeah, very true. He could steal a flying charge unit, and imagine if he stole like a Soulfire Drake. Not that they don't already have flying and charge, but if he stole his own
Reaper
copy,
would also be great. Some health gain for Rhino.
Yeah, something here.
So he's opting to attack, and he's going to play the Black Sky Harbinger instead of using the Feln Bloodcaster's ability. And I think you definitely have to do that. Like, you need to play to the board right now because you're still in a precarious position.
Yeah, definitely. Like, he needs to play the board. He needs to get he needs to get a way to win this game here, or at least stabilize his life total a little bit more. And we already know Jock has the 2nd stash, so this is going to provide him a lot of value.
At least all of his units are silenced from Sir Rhino's Steward of the Past a couple turns ago, and at least it takes Jock's whole turn, so Rhino will get a hit in with his Black Sky Harbinger and be able to gain some more health and activate the ultimate of a Feln Bloodcaster, draw some more cards. Like, this sort of turn intermission provides Rhino the respite he needs to perhaps get back in the game.
Yeah, very true. You see Rhino picking up an Annihilate here. That might actually be pretty useful with all these units floating around.
So the interesting thing is, if Rhino annihilates or trades with the Soulfire Drake, that means every unit in Jock's deck will have both flying and charge. Because the Drake always provides an ability that the unit didn't already have.
True. The Soulfire Drake is silenced, though, correct?
Oh, yeah, that's right. It sounds. Yes, it's just a vanilla 5/2.
Yeah.
And likewise, the Cabal Countess doesn't have ambush. It's just a 3-cost 6/1.
Yeah, much less attractive units as just a 5/2 and a 6/1.
Yeah, Steward of the Past is really incredible. Just shutting off some percentage of the value of Smuggler Stash. Like, it's still a good card, but it's not just completely burying Rhino like it could have been.
True. This is a way for Rhino to get back in this game, though, right here. This Champion of Cunning, if he can get the 2nd ability online, the Shadow ability, this could be huge. He could make these bloodcasters massive. And he's picked up a lot of removal here to answer Jock's threats. And Jock has no more stashes and no more weapons.
Yeah, this is pretty ridiculous. Like, I know that Feln Control is a deck that often plays from behind and is good at making comebacks, but this is quite the comeback.
Yeah, very true. I mean, we do this 5/5 Aegis unit. It's so scary. Like the champion of cunning right now is Jock is just kind of staring this down. Like it wouldn't be nearly as much of a problem if that was an actual Soulfire Drake, but it's like a Soulfire whelp. Like it can't even fly.
A pale imitation of a real Soulfire Drake.
Yeah, exactly. That's not a Soulfire Drake. That's a fake.
So I think that Jack does want to attack with this Countess because the 1 health dies to so many incidental things. It's just going to trade with a Bloodcaster that already used its ultimate, but that's better than trading with 1/3 of the summon ability of a Black Sky Harbinger.
Yeah, very true. And Jock kind of struggling here. He's trying to figure out what kind of trades he can make. Trying to see if he can get something around. And we see the Steward of the Past coming into play, actually popping the Aegis on Rhino, since that effect would have silenced all the cards in his.
Yeah, it's not the thing you want to block with your Aegis, but it does something, I guess.
No, you would much prefer to block Umber Reaper, but all things considered, Rhino in a pretty good position here.
Yeah, I think that you definitely are not looking terrible since you have all this removal. Oh wow, that was a very good pickup. Now Rhino can kill every single unit Jock has and start getting aggressive with this champion over the next few turns.
Yeah, he can, and he is sitting on a 4-turn clock for Jock, and like this suffocate that he's been holding all game, like perfect, picks up that Steward of the Past perfectly, and he's holding the Annihilate Death Strike as well.
Ooh, that suffocate from Jock is good. Oh wait, I don't think he checked. Did he? He picked the one that hasn't ultimated yet.
Yeah, I think he did too. I think he picked the center one. Yeah, that's actually a huge misplay here.
Yeah, so Sir Rhino now is going to be able to activate that ultimate, and he has removal for both of the units that would otherwise be able to get through with this attack. So suddenly, this game is looking amazing for Sir Rhino.
Yeah, very true. Yeah, and he kept his card advantage here too. I mean, this is crazy. Like this Bloodcaster can go off next turn if he wants it to. And
Well, the Bloodcaster is going to die to Jock Vara's favor.
Oh,
but
true.
It's a 5/5 flying Aegis Champion of Cunning against a 4/3 Furnace Mage, and their players are even on health. Like Sir Rhino is winning by a lot on the board, plus has a Death Strike in hand.
And he finally finds a Seek Power to get that extra Shadow Sigil. So he's going to turn this into still a 3-turn clock, but this unit is getting out of control very quickly.
So Jock finally picks up a unit that benefited from the Soulfire Drake. Has a flying Argenport Instigator.
This is lethal. This is lethal because he Death Strikes the Argenport Instigator. He loses the point of health, and then the champion's at 7 now since it buffed itself.
Yeah. Yeah.
Rhino with the huge comeback. Oh man, I thought he was done like 7 turns ago. Like I really thought that I thought Jock's board was just too crazy. And once we knew that even with one stash getting countered, it just wasn't going to be enough. I mean, that was insane out of Rhino. That was an awesome game.
Yeah, Rhino was just always able to have a unit down so that Jock's Stone Scar models weren't able to get out of control and were always just 1-for-1s. And then Backlash on one of the 2 Smuggler stashes and being even to a head on board for the second one, it's allowed him time to stabilize and turn that game around. A crucial Black Sky Harbinger gaining a bunch of health, and then Champion of Cunning finished the game off.
Yeah, and honestly, something to be noted that was really impactful there, in my opinion, was the Steward of the Past silences on all of Jock's units made it so that Smuggler stash was very ineffective. Like it brought back a 5/2 for 5 and a 3-cost 6/1, and 6/1 not a terrible stat line, but it just like the units didn't do anything. That was the issue. Is like they didn't have quick draw, they didn't have flying in charge. He couldn't even bring back the Champions of Chaos like he'd like to with the Overwhelmed Deadly. Like he was just staring at a bunch of stats on vanilla creatures.
Yeah, you put those cards in your deck for their good abilities. You don't put them in there for their ability to be 3-cost 3/3s.
Yeah, and wow, what a turnaround there! Really, what an excellent game out of Rhino. This is why I have him winning this thing out today. This is why I put my faith in the right place. Like Rhino, just such an expert on control on that control matchup and how to pilot this Feln deck.
Yeah, so coming up next here, we are going to have the other losers bracket match. It's going to be Unearthly with Rakano Plate against Kampf Kroat on Burn Queen. So stay tuned.